how to be yourself, how to be your true self, how to get the most out of your life and bring the most of yourself out into the world. That is what we're going to talk about today. But first, please send your validation my way so that I can inhale it into my soul. And please send said validation by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the little notification bell afterwards. It's super duper important. All other platforms, please like, comment, subscribe, share your love with me. Okay, how to be yourself. Be yourself is simultaneously the best and worst advice that you could ever give anyone. And there's just a subtle distinction between the right and wrong way to be yourself that most people miss. And obviously, when it comes to anything, when we're talking about the process of self-improvement, people are going to take the road more traveled. They're going to take the road of rationalization and lying to themselves about what things mean. So take the concept of being yourself. Being yourself can be a misnomer for so many different things. Oftentimes people substitute the idea of being yourself for, in reality, just settling, right? When you come across with this attitude that you're being authentic, that you don't need to go out of your way, that you don't need to do anything extra to improve yourself, that everything you want to happen in your life should fall into your lap, like you're being authentic and being yourself, it's just a way to it's just a cop out, right? If you're being yourself, acting like you don't have to adjust yourself or adjust your behavior in any different way depending on the situation and context, especially when you're dealing with other people, that's another false way of pretending to be yourself when really you're not sort of calibrating yourself to the situation at hand. And I talk about the concept of being yourself because when it comes to what I think about, when in terms of being yourself, it's like being the absolute best version of yourself, being the apex version of yourself, being the version of yourself that you dream about being, right? So we all go through this mental movie in our head. We go through this mental movie of us being someone coming fully into the world. We have visions of us being as confident as we possibly can be. We have visions of ourselves being as productive as we can possibly be. We have visions of ourselves being charismatic, being great at business, being great with our career, being great with our body, being great with finances. We have our picture in our mind of this kind of movie star level version of ourselves. We all do this. But then when it comes to real life, when it comes to reality, when it comes to actually having to do those things, when it comes to having to start that business, when it comes to having to visit that networking conference and work the room, when it comes to seeing that beautiful, amazing person that could be the love of your life and walking across the room and talking to them, when it comes to putting something together that is above and beyond your current level of comprehension and capability that's going to really stretch you and expose you to real feedback, well, then we almost always fold. So there's this ideal version of who we know that we can be. And the messed up part is the daydream feels so good. The daydream feels so real. Like when you are visualizing yourself being confident, it feels so real to you and it feels like you are capable of doing it. Then when the rubber meets the road and you actually have to do it, all of a sudden it just fades away and it melts. And then you're back to who you are. The person who, if we're being honest about ourselves, pretty much all of us come to the world as a lesser version of what we really would like to be. And this includes myself. There are many aspects, which I'm about to allude to in a little bit, talk about in a little bit down the road, that I'm personally working on that I don't have 100% confidence in. And one of the first steps that you have to understand when you really want to be your true self, when you really want to be that highest, enlightened, most productive, most charismatic, most savvy, all of those things that you really want to be, you have to really be able to take an accurate and honest assessment of where you are really at. And that is really hard to do. It's really hard to do for a couple reasons. One is because we have this message in society at large And we all kind of do this in different contexts. We all turn our nose up at certain types of self-improvement. You know, the idea of be yourself, just do it. It's kind of like everything should just fall into your lap. And if it doesn't, if you have to work for it, there's something wrong with that. You know, so people talk about, man, just be yourself. You don't want to worry. Why are you reading all these books? Why are you studying? Why are you watching these videos? Like, you don't need to learn how to do that. Everybody knows how to do that, right? And you are meant to feel ashamed about not being so great at something that maybe other people are naturally good at, that you're expected to be good at. And you look down upon for kind of really admitting areas where you need to work on and grow in your life, and being honest with yourself about that. It's hard to do because of society. What will people think about me? And it's so weird. We're just run by this little ego that's always like, what will people think about me? When these people that we're trying to impress, they don't matter. We know that in our head. They're not worth impressing. The people's opinions we care about, it's not worth listening to their opinions. Rejection, embarrassment, fear, all this stuff, it's not actually worth paying attention to what other people are doing, but our ego doesn't allow us to move forward. Our ego doesn't allow us to humble ourselves and just accept where we're at and take a real, full, honest audit of ourselves and understand what we have to work on. So on the one hand, you have your strengths. You have areas that you're naturally good in that you want to hone and get better at. And like I've talked about in other videos, you don't want to spend so much time building an identity of practicing and working on your weaknesses. You want to focus on your strengths, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that all of your weaknesses, all the things you're not naturally good at, you should abandon, right? And let me give you an example from my life that's going to illustrate what I'm talking about a little bit more. So back when I was in college, I was a pretty, socially savvy guy. I would go out. I had a lot of friends. I dated a lot. I was popular. Everything went well in that regards. I was kind of like party guy. And towards the end of my college career, when I was still stuck in that college town, broke and depressed and everything like that, after I kind of been drinking my life away, I was like, okay, I'm going to get super serious about this writing thing. I'm going to get super serious about self-improvement. So I stopped going out and I stopped drinking and I stopped hanging out with people who like to party. And slowly but surely, like while I was ascending in my self-improvement in kind of the career aspect of it, I let go of the self-improvement in the social aspect and started cutting people off and alienating myself. And then I got into a relationship and then I got married. And then after that, I kind of settled into a further groove. So I was working on self-improvement, working on the writing, and I kind of used my wife at the time, my kid, and my family as kind of my crutch to not work on anything else except for my writing. And then we had relationship issues. The relationship devolved into the point where we got a divorce, separated, and I had to move to a new city where I was essentially all alone. And actually one of the most difficult and kind of humbling things about that process was that my social skills, over 5 years of kind of alienating myself socially, my social skills have basically eroded to nothing, right? And if you look at me on camera, I'm pretty good on camera. I'm good at public speaking. You would look at me and think I'm not really somebody who has too much terrible of a time talking to people, right? But I'm actually by nature a very highly introverted person. And that introverted nature plus the combination of me alienating myself socially and kind of all the psychological problems I created for myself by kind of putting myself in that sort of identity and situation led to the point where I was totally alone in a new city. My social skills, my dating skills, my confidence with being around people in general had eroded to basically nothing. And I came to a point in my life where, at the age of 30, I was having to relearn some things that you're not supposed to be focused on and learning, right? So I went back to the woodwork and practiced social skills. I practiced dating skills. I practiced getting better at talking to people and having small talk. And there were all these skills that deep down felt embarrassing for me to want to learn, but I realized that I wasn't going to be a complete person I wasn't going to be a whole person. I wasn't going to be my fully authentic self if I were to let that part go by the wayside and make excuses just because, that I wasn't this naturally social butterfly, that it's not something worth working on, right? And I actually use social skills because social skills, dating, all of that human interaction, communication skills, that's kind of the perfect microcosm for the entire idea of being your full self, right? I'm actually thinking about coming out with a book called Be Yourself that talks about this process in depth, particularly with social skills. Especially, it's just a really great microcosm for this ethos that I'm talking about, right? So when it comes to social skills, it's one of those things that, especially dating, that it's really kind of like frowned upon to feel like you should have to learn, right? It's like, oh, just be yourself, just make friends, just have fun, and then you'll kind of find the right person. But really what happens to people who don't actively focus on their social skills? They don't really meet the type of people they want to meet. They don't meet the quality of people they want to meet. They kind of meet whoever is in their proximity, and you see a lot of relationships, friendships, business relationships where really it wasn't two high quality people working on being the best versions of themselves meeting and kind of taking two separate solid entities and merging together. No, often what you see is people who just settle for whatever is around them because you're not supposed to work on your social skills. You're not supposed to work on your dating skills. You're not supposed to accentuate yourself and learn how to become more socially attractive, more relationship attractive, more business attractive. You're not supposed to learn those things. It's frowned upon. You're weird if you want to learn those things, right? But then you see so many people who are frankly not good at it. It's one of the areas where so many people think they're good at it, but they're terrible at it, right? And I go and I walk and I look and talk to people, and you can see that the way they're coming into the world, they're not fully actualized, and you can tell. Rarely are you seeing people who are really themselves, really out there, really comfortable in their own skin, but at the same time, just because you're comfortable in your own skin doesn't mean that you don't learn how to adapt, that you don't learn how to read people, that you don't learn how to be a part of the social milieu and everything like that. So it's equal parts focusing on your strengths, being authentic to who you really are. Like, you don't want to, compromise your values or your beliefs for a goal or for the benefit of other people. But at the same time, a lot of people make this excuse that they're just being themselves when really what they're saying is they don't want to fully show up in the world. They don't want to mitigate some of the weaknesses that are getting in the way of their overall success, right? So in my case, I've figured out the success angle in terms of productivity, in terms of business, in terms of kind of money and finance and creating and making stuff. But then I thought about, what is my lack of something I'm not naturally good at going to cost me in terms of that overall spectrum of the things I'm doing, right? So if I'm really good on stage, public speaking, but then I'm not good working the room before and after the talk, I'm taking away from accentuating something that I'm good at. What business connections am I missing out on because I'm not willing to put myself out there and go say hi at a networking event? What kind of effect is it going to have on my business if I'm not dating the type of people who match my values, who are going to be a good support in the mission that I'm doing, a good partner in the mission that I'm doing? See, most people, especially in relationships, a lot of that bleeds into other areas when you settle and you decide that you're just going to be yourself and kind of like take whatever you can get. That becomes a theme for most of your life, right? And so for me, what I've come to learn is that I'm going to take no shame in having to learn things that maybe other people didn't have to work for, right? And we all have our different starting points. So that's why it's important. It's really, really important. Like, you have to start where you are. So let's say you need to work on your social skills. Let's say that you are an artist who's really good at creative, but they're not good at marketing. Let's say that you are a leader, but you're not good at organizational skills. Or let's say you are good at organizational skills, but you can't show yourself as a leader to kind of do the things you want. So you have the thing that you need to mitigate along with the thing that you're good at, right? So what do you do about that thing that you need to mitigate? You need to be brutally honest with yourself about where you are with that. Don't make your gauge what you think the average person's starting point should be. No, you have to start with your starting point. Going back to the social skills thing, because it just paints a really good picture. I'm in a lot of Toastmasters speaking clubs. And these are clubs that help people not only with public speaking, but confidence in general, having small talk in general. And it's actually funny if you notice, when the kind of from the social perspective, when you interact with a lot of people and you start to learn how to read facial expressions, read tics, read the way they come into the world, a lot of people are they need places like Toastmasters, let's say that. And there's this guy in one of my clubs, and he is kind of severely socially inept. His palms literally sweat. You know, when you shake his hand, he's getting ready for speeches, he shakes when he talks. He has a very hard time making eye contact. Now, what kind of message would be beneficial to tell someone like him? Oh, just be yourself, man. Be yourself. Yeah, sure, some of your social issues are probably going to really debilitate you in many areas of your life, but just be yourself. Just sit in the basement. Don't learn social skills. Don't learn leadership skills. Be held back in your career, in your life, and not have an amazing partner, not having the best job, and not being able to speak up at the meetings. Just be yourself, dude. No. He started where he was. So whereas I thought I had major issues kind of getting back into the social and dating pool after, 5 years of being in a relationship, this guy could barely hold a conversation. But he didn't judge himself, and none of the members in the club, which is a great reason why I joined clubs like this, none of the members in the club forced him to start somewhere that he wasn't. So he would get up on stage and he would give very bad speeches, like frankly, very bad speeches. He would talk too fast. He would barely make any eye contact with the audience. He'd have his hands in his pocket, shaking, holding his notes, just really bad. But then the next time he gave a speech, it was still bad, but it wasn't as bad. Then he gives another one, and it's not as bad. And then he'll give another one, and it's kind of good. And then next thing you know, a year or two later, he starts over here at a very deficient level, and he works just to get at a level that you and I would consider normal, right? But for him, coming from that starting point, it's worth it. And for you, being brutally honest about your starting point is worth it. Work on things from the ground up. I'm talking about myself and my situation. Like, look at me the way I talk. Like, you can imagine me being able to hold a conversation with somebody. It's not as if it was like super terrible or anything. But like I said, I've been out of the market, out of the dating pool, not spending any time with friends. So like when I got out of all that and I was dropped in a new city by myself, like I did feel really socially awkward. And so some of the things that I had to do were a little embarrassing for me to start. Like basic shit, like basic things. I know YouTube is watching the cursing. Basic things, YouTube. But I had to do basic things like I would just have conversations. Like it was kind of weird for me to have small talk with anybody. Like it could be a 94-year-old grandmother or a 20-year-old swimsuit model. It was equally hard at a certain point about 6 months ago to just get out there and have basic small talk and like get used to being around people, because I had spent so much time like sitting in a room writing or only spending time with my close family, right? So I had to come from that perspective. And then I had to relearn how to go out. I had to relearn how to go out and talk to people. I had to relearn how to go on a date. I had to relearn how to do all this stuff that I felt like I shouldn't be doing. But I've long adopted the ethos that there is nothing wrong with being a self-improvement nerd. Be a self-improvement nerd. You want to have hard-won, earned skills along with your naturally talented skills. You want to have both. A lot of people, they're selling themselves short because they think things should be a certain way. So I've used the social skills one enough. We'll talk about like in writing. I have a lot of friends who are writers who are not naturally good marketers. It's like me, I was a good writer and I naturally understood marketing as well. But then some of the writers who are actually really, really, really talented, they fail because they don't think that they should have to learn marketing. They think that marketing is beneath them. They think that they should just be themselves. I should just put my words out there and people should magically find them. I should just put up my basic business idea and not put anything behind it, and people should just like it because it's me. See, that's all ego talking. Like this idea that you should not have to alter yourself or your behavior in any way, and that the world and the universe and that people around you should just like bend to your will and like acquiesce to your idiosyncratic personality quirks and life quirks and behavioral level and skills is insane. But we all do it, and then we all create these unrealistic expectations of other people, and then you could see how it messes things up socially, in business, in networking, in all sorts of areas. Just like this collective idea that it's somehow beneath you to consciously work to improve all areas of your life. It's like for me, the way I'm looking at life is I'm learning who I am over time. I don't have a static version of me. The version of me is always upgrading. I'm always upgrading, not because I want to be better than anyone else, but because I want to be better for myself. I want to make sure that I'm being my best self, A, for me, so that I can get the most from life, but B, it helps other people if I'm the best version of myself. It helps other people if you're the best version of yourself. If I'm improving things that I'm deficient at that can help me spread awareness about what I am good at, then that's helping me spread that message out to more people. It's helping me to make those connections that could impact people that really need to hear the messages that I have, that want to have their lives changed. In your case, you not coming to the world as your full self, as rooted in your core strengths, but also learning how to build systems and learn and mitigate some of your weaknesses. If you don't do that, then not only are you robbing yourself, but you're actually robbing other people. And we live in a very egocentric world where many people are claiming to be authentic, but really they're just settling. And by settling and by pretending to be authentic and by pretending that their lack of effort is somehow virtuous, they're actually becoming a net negative on society. Like you see that a lot of people are a net negative on society, and we have like begun to dive into like this nihilistic me, take culture where nobody feels like they should have to do anything. Like no one feels like they should have to improve themselves in any way, shape, or form, and that everything they should want should be handed to them, and that every person that interacts with them should just accept them for who they are, regardless of what level of awareness they're bringing towards other people, right? So if you're not being the best version of yourself, what you're really saying is not only don't you care about yourself enough to change, but you don't care about other people in your tribe and the community at large, because you're not willing to give them the best that you have to offer. So that's what I mean when I say be yourself. Be your full self. And you will have to start at a low point of admitting where your flaws are. But if you learn how to mitigate those and work on some of those and ultimately accept yourself as a whole person, then you'll come into the world a lot stronger. So like, how do you deal with your weaknesses? Well, there's a couple options. You can mitigate your weaknesses and kind of just ignore some of them. Like for me, I'm not very detail oriented and organized, so I'm never going to like try to be super efficient in that. And I know that I can get away with not being able to do that. I can work with people. Like I have a productivity coach, I have an assistant, I have people who kind of help keep my head straight, so I can outsource some of that, right? Then there's things that are kind of in the middle, like personal finance, for example. Like you want to be okay with your money. You don't want to be terrible with your money. So you could do something like automating your finances, which kind of takes it out of the way. And it's like a weakness. Maybe you're not great with money, but you have that system in place that gives you a base level of how good you are with money, right? And then lastly, there are things that are just really probably crucial to work on, regardless of how naturally talented you are. And I think social skills is one of those things. It's actually something that I'm going to really be diving into quite heavily. And you're going to be documenting, or you're going to watch me document my experience in increasing my social skills. And once I learn how to like master them a little bit more, I'm probably gonna put out content about that and maybe like put this book together about that, because that's one area. Like there's certain things that you need to master whether or not you're really naturally talented. Social skills is probably one of those things. Creating a high enough level of motivation and productivity is one of those things. Like you can't just throw up your hands and say you're not lazy, or say that you're lazy and not productive. Like can't get away with that. There's just other things. There's other things that are really worth working on and building up over a long period of time. And so then when you kind of build yourself, there's a certain sense where you feel better when you feel like you've constructed a better version of yourself, when you've put yourself together, when you have like carved yourself from a slab of granite and all that's left is like the raw, beautiful, fully present, energetic, productive, like self-actualized, perfect statue of yourself left. And not that you're ever trying to aim for perfection, but it's really kind of a fun, interesting, almost game to see how much you can level up. And like that's what I'm trying to do in my life right now. I'm trying to see how much I can really level up. I'm trying to see where the limits of my beliefs really are. I'm trying to see how much I'm really capable of. And it's funny, you always bump into that ceiling, and then once you reach it, like you reach a status point, and then you're like, oh, I can do more. And you realize the process is never ending. So the people who want to be in the just be yourself camp, all right, be yourself. Keep being yourself, guys. Keep being in subpar relationships because you don't want to work on being the highest quality person and attracting the highest quality people. Be yourself and settle for a career that you hate because you don't want to spend extra time working on self-improvement, working on extracurricular knowledge in your career. Continue to be yourself and settle. Be yourself in the world. Act like everyone else. Go ahead. Act like everyone else. Turn up your nose at self-improvement and see what happens. You're going to end up like everyone else. It's like me, like at this point in my life, I have no time or energy to care about the just be yourself folks. They can go kick rocks. They can do what they want to do. I'm not even mad at them. Like those people they're in the periphery to me. Like they don't exist. You know who exists to me? You. You're in the small camp of people who wake up and, regardless of how much you've actually implemented, you wake up and you look into a camera and you listen to somebody talk about potentially changing your life. You know that you could be doing more, and you're actively seeking information and advice and insights to actually implement that are going to help you do that. So you should congratulate yourself for that. But remember that this is going to be a very long uphill battle of fighting through your rationalizations, understanding where you're at, understanding that there are some things that you're just not going to be very good at, and that you are going to have to like throw yourself into the fire and experience and get feedback about how not good you are until you become good. And then you do it over and over and over again, and that becomes your life. And if you do it right, it becomes a pretty good one. Okay! You 2.0 is the book. Talks about reinventing yourself, becoming a better version of yourself, the 2.0 upgraded version. Get it? Get it? Okay. YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the little notification bell. It's a little bell that pops up right after you subscribe. That means you can get all of my videos right away. All other platforms, please like, comment, subscribe. I will see you on the next video.